Welcome back to the Marketing Mindset. I think this is now our 8th Marketing Mindset, and we're really excited. We are doing this every week to kind of highlight some of the things that we're talking about on the AgencySparks blog, as well as engage in dialogue with you, conversation with you about some issues that are important to marketers. So I'll remind you that you can actually go to AgencySparks.com/blog and see a lot of the topics that we're discussing, and we also have a blog archives available. And then in addition to the blog archives, if you go to youtube.com/AgencySparks, you can actually see past Marketing Mindset videos. So we capture those all there. We're also talking about turning this into a podcast, so let us know what you think about that idea, where we can maybe extract the audio from the Marketing Mindset and put it into a podcast format. We thought that would be kind of cool. So I'm particularly excited about this week because as we're writing a lot of content for our blog and also for social and other places, we talk a lot about our brand's voice and brand tone. And certainly this week on the blog, we actually wrote about the brand voice and tone. And so I want to just quickly recap some of the other marketing mindsets we've covered over the last several weeks. The first one we did was about marketing tools and what are some of the great marketing tools you should be checking out. We did a perfect marketing brief, which we even created a guide for actually somebody that wants to create their own marketing brief. We did a show all about measurement. We did one about the agency and client relationship. Creativity and inspiration. We're actually doing an event for our agency partners as well as some brand marketers that are going to talk all about creativity. We talked about building great teams. We talked about empathy in marketing, and then today, again, we're talking about brand voice and tone. So we're excited about it. So I want to just quickly kind of highlight what is the difference between voice and tone from a brand perspective. There's sort of the brand voice is sort of what are the adjectives that you would use to describe your brand versus the tone is sort of what the voice sounds like. It goes hand in hand with the voice, but it's sort of the style of speech or the style of what you're saying versus the substance of what you're saying. And so why are these important? Well, most people overlook tone and voice. They just jump right in to their brand and communicate without thinking through that in advance. And while you can't personally have a conversation with every single customer in person, communicating over platforms like social media and through the blog, etc., are a great way for you to kind of convey your brand and tone, your voice and tone to a lot of people at the same time. Also, having a very defined voice and tone helps you characterize your brand and helps people kind of understand who you are as a brand. And that also creates trust over the long term. And so, trust leads to brand loyalty. So loyalty is important too. So I've got a couple of analogies to sort of talk about how you can establish your voice and tone. Being a marketer in some ways is no different than being a storyteller or comedian or musician in that artists express themselves through different tones and they relate to their audiences through different tones and different voices. And I'll give you an example of we've been talking a lot here at AgencySparks about musicians and how you can take the same exact song and have it performed by two different artists. So in some cases it'd be an original song, like many of you know The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And then there's a newer version that was done by, I think the band is called Disrupt or something like that. But anyway, they did a remake of the original Sound of Silence song, and it's not Disrupt, is it? It's actually Disturb. Disturb is the band. But anyway, it's a great example of how the tone. The voice may be the same in terms of the words that they're using, but the tone may be very, very different. So anyway, a brand's voice must be truthful, it must be consistent, it must be unique. These are the factors that will set you apart from the other brands that are out there. And most of you already have a differentiated voice or tone, but it never hurts to establish it and have some content objectives and that kind of thing. Especially if your company has changed since it first started. Even if you have a defined voice, it's important to kind of consider how it changes over time. So we're going to talk about the 4 steps that would lead you to really come up with your perfect voice and tone. The first is analyzing your values and understanding your values. The second is analyzing your audience. The third is assigning writers that jive with the brand. And then the fourth is imagining the brand as a person and thinking about who you're talking to. So for everyday business operations, everyone's sort of on the same page working towards the same goal. And so whether the purpose of the content is to inform somebody or to entertain them or educate them, it should tie back to the purpose of the company. And the best voices are those that are consistent and truthful. So think about what your true voice is. I mean, singers often are told by their singing coach, find your voice. And so we're sort of in the same position with our brands. So we'll ask internal sources, the team that you work with. We'll ask external sources, customers, people like that, about what they expect from your brand. It's fun to ask employees to give you 5 attributes of your brand that they think are an important part of your brand. And then from those words, you can kind of hone in on those that are most meaningful for you. In terms of analyzing your audience, just like when you were young and not everybody is going to be like you, and everybody has their own distinct personality style. Particularly, you think about teenage years as people's personalities really emerge. So we want to cater to the people that really care about our brand. There are always going to be those that are not advocates of our brand, and we're not speaking to them. We're speaking to our core constituents. So in terms of ways to analyze, you can start to segment and develop descriptive personas. So personas and scenarios, we talk a lot about that here at AgencySparks. A persona is, the attributes of the person that you're trying to communicate with, and try to come up with the actual person that embodies those qualities or values. Scenarios are more about what that person is trying to accomplish or do. And so, we may be trying to entertain that person, we may be trying to inform that person, we may just be trying to begin a dialogue with them through these communication channels. And so think about who that person is or who those people are. A good example for us here at AgencySparks, we like to be kind of informative on our blog and share information we think would be useful for our audience. We're much more playful on social. We're less inclined to focus on information and more on fun and play. In terms of assigning writers being the fourth thing, is it's important to have some consistency of voice. And so, you don't want to just pawn this off to an intern. You want to have somebody that's a little bit more seasoned as a writer who's going to actually carry your voice and tone throughout any communication from the company. Also, you want to make sure you don't drop somebody in the middle of a conversation like a new writer without giving them some really clear guidelines as to what the tone and voice is of the company. That builds consistency, which then builds trust in the long term. And in terms of finding the right writers, look for consistency, look for vocabulary and jargon and language, and is there a style that they have that's consistent with the brand? And proofreading, boy, that's super important, because typos, nothing says a lot about your brand more in a negative way than having lots of typos. And then the last thing is just imagine your brand as a person. People are more interesting to talk to than robots are to talk to. People don't want to talk to robots. And because you already got some defined personality traits for your brand, just pretend like your brand is a person. And so you can ask yourself some questions about the brand. What is your brand's likes and dislikes? Reading the posts out loud to hear how they sound to another human or to yourself is valuable. And this affects how you write the content. Jay Baer had a great quote about this, was give the customer somebody to talk about, not something. So think about that as you're writing content. Is there somebody you can highlight that would be more interesting? And then just be interesting and create something that you would want to read yourself. It takes a while to come up with this. Comedians often take 10 years to really come up with their voice. And sometimes their tone or how they're saying something is way more funny or way funnier than what they're saying. The joke is not the actually hilarious thing; it's the delivery of the joke in a fun way. And then the other thing is, understand who you are as a brand. I mean, a brand like Wendy's has done a good job of positioning themselves to be really snarky in social media, whereas a brand like Coke is more happy and energetic and empathetic. No matter what you do, though, make sure that you're actually being human and you're sounding human. So just my last piece of, I guess, as a question for you is, are there any other things that you're using to develop your brand and voice? Is there anything that we've missed on our end? Is there anything that you want to see us cover in a future marketing mindset? I want to remind you that you can go to AgencySparks.com/blog or AgencySparks.com/blog archives and see the things that we're writing about. And then also YouTube.com/AgencySparks. You can see past episodes of Marketing Mindset. And one other thing I wanted to ask you again, if you think maybe could turn this into a podcast, would you listen to it? Where would you listen to it? When would you listen to it? Is it while you're running, while you're commuting? Whatever. But we think it could be a fun way to deliver the marketing mindset in another format for you. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. See you next week.